thank you again for doing this.
My pleasure.
Let me just give an introduction. We have Dr. Denson Angulo today. He is a bass player, music educator, composer, arranger, and interestingly, a voice actor. Yeah.
Indeed.
He's one of the most versatile and well-rounded musician in the Utah community, and he's played or plays with the Salt Lake City Jazz Orchestra, and then Symphonia, Salt Lake, and the mixed band, the B&B All-Stars. He also played with the many great jazz players such as Bob Mincer, Bob Berg, Randy Becker, Victor Wooten, Nicholas Payton, Bob Shepard, Jamie Abersole, Wycliffe Gordon, and the list just goes on, right? And you are also a band leader in the Chromium.
Yeah, Chromium 3.
And Tri-Comedy, right? And he now currently teaches at the University of Utah, right?
Yep.
And list goes on, of course.
Yep.
So, what drives you to do all this? Like, where do you get your passion to do this?
Well, I've always loved music. I have memories of playing music when I was just really little, and my mother has pictures of me, little 3-year-old, sitting at my great aunt's console organ with giant headphones engulfing my head, you know. So music's been a part of my life, my whole life. And because it's such a huge part of what I do, I want to share that with the world, whether it's performing or teaching or, you know, whatever. And just that passion of loving something so much that you want to just tell everybody about it. That's kind of where it's led me.
So you're saying as a little kid, you just naturally start picking up instruments?
Yeah. I played piano by ear until I started playing bass. I couldn't read music until I was 15 years old.
So you didn't? Did your parents push you?
Nope.
How did they expose you?
No, I had a piano in the house, and my dad is a professional opera singer. He lives in Chicago. He's actually retired now.
A professional opera?
Yeah, professional tenor.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And he sounds amazing. It's the Domingo Pavarotti sort of style, that Italian tenor kind of thing. So all that music was always playing, and classical music was always playing just because of that influence. And then my mom, she did musical theater. She played piano, and she loved disco. She's a child of the 70s, 80s pop, 70s pop, 80s pop. And so that's what I heard that kind of music too. So yeah, ever since I was little, I just loved music. I loved movie soundtracks. John Williams is a huge influence on me. Of course, I'm a Star Wars nerd, so that music is huge.
Yeah, right.
But like I said, I didn't have formal music lessons until I was in high school. Yeah, it was just all by ear.
What do your parents think of you now?
Well, I actually work for my dad, who owns a production company, so I'm one of his music directors. The company's Stargate Music Productions, and so he knows that I'm a good musician. He knows that I have a lot of experience and stuff, so I work with him. It's really cool. That's a neat thing.
Work with your dad?
With my dad, yeah. And my mom, she's just a mom that's super proud. You know, she's deceased now. She passed, but she was always very proud of my accomplishments and what I was doing, and just loved that I loved music so much. And it's what I've been doing my whole life. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when did you start to pick up the bass?
I was in high school, and I played keyboard by ear since I was little, like I said. And one day I went to the band room during a lunch break and asked the teacher if I could play with the synthesizers that he had there, just the, cool gear at the time. This was
the modular synth?
It was it wasn't like an analog synthesizer. No, it was just a synth, like a keyboard, sounds built in and stuff like that. I think it was an Insonique, which I don't even know if they still make gear. I don't remember. And then there was a Korg M3. That was a cool keyboard. But so I went and asked him if I could play keyboard and just, fart around on the sounds. And as I was leaving, so I was playing stuff that I had to listen to, video game music, soundtrack kind of stuff, very inspired by, 19th century symphonic music. And yeah. So then I'm getting ready to leave and he stops me. He says, "Hey, do you read music?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, you have a very natural talent. I want to tell you that." And his name was John Priest. And I was like, "Oh, well, thank you very much." He's like, "Would you be interested in learning how to read music?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, maybe." And he explained to me that his bass player was a senior coming the next year. So he'll be a senior. I would be a junior. I was a sophomore at the time of this story. And he's like, "My bass player is going to graduate and move, and I need to train someone." I was like, "Oh, okay. I think I could do that." But I was thinking bass with my left hand on a keyboard, because why would he ask me if I played bass? I was playing. Yeah, I was playing a keyboard. So I was thinking, my mindset was, it's a keyboard. I'll play keyboard bass. Yeah, I could do that. Because I was doing it that day. He heard me doing it. It's like, "Yeah, okay, sign up for band then, and we can start learning how to read music." I was like, "Okay, this is cool. I could do this." Yeah, I just got a keyboard for Christmas myself. This is gonna be great. So I sign up for the class the next semester. I show up and he hands me a bass guitar. And I was like, "What the heck is this?" And he's like, No. Yeah, I think you can do it. I was like, "But I've never done this." "No, it's okay. It's okay. You could do it. Look, watch." And he played guitar and he showed me how his fingers went. He's like, "And I got you this book." He hands me the Mel Bay Electric Bass Method book #1. And I just started. I was like, "All right, well, challenge accepted. Let's see if I can figure this out." So I started.
High school?
This was high school. I was 15. And so I was like, "All right, let's just figure it out." So I started playing bass. He had a bass for me and he gave me that book and he's like, "Just try it out. See if you can do it."
What year was it?
1992. Yeah. 92, 93, something like that. I'd have to look at my yearbook. But yeah, it was my sophomore year, the spring semester of my sophomore year. Yeah, which I think was 1992.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd have to look it up. But there you go.
That was like 4 years before I was born.
Nice. Yeah, I've been playing bass a long time. And I just dove right in and I transcribed and listened and played with the radio and played with recordings, all styles of music from heavy metal, country, ZZ Top. And then one day I heard Victor Wooten with the Flecktones, and so it's all I wanted to do. I loved it. And I remember saying to my band teacher, that guy, John Priest, when I was a junior, I was like, "Man, I love this so much. I want to do it for the rest of my life." I said, "I want to be the best bass player in Utah. I want to get my doctorate in bass." And I was 16 when I said this to him. He kind of laughed at me. Like, "Wow, okay, big goals, because I was only 16. He's like, and then he started calling me Dr. Bass. It became a nickname in high school.
Dr. Bass.
Yeah, because I told him that. And he said, "Yeah, you'll be Dr. Bass, And I want to be the best bass player in Utah. Like, that was my scope when I was 16, That's all I've been doing. That's all I've been doing ever since. Yeah, he still lives in Vernal. That's where I went to school.
Still calls you Dr. Bass? No,
when I talk
officially.
When I talk to him, yeah. Yep.
Okay. When you were discovering all this kind of music, who became like your favorite, and who became your musical idols during that time?
My influences, yeah. Well, I'll never forget the day that I heard Victor Wooten, and it was in the summer of my junior year. A friend brought over a copy of Flight of the Cosmic Hippo by Bella Fleck and the Flecktones. And I've heard that first track. I was like, "How is he doing this stuff?" And I wanted to figure it out. I listened. I tried to figure some of his stuff out. And then later I found that you could order a video of him playing. It was called Victor Wooten's super solo bass technique or something like that. It's on YouTube now. But I paid $50 for a VHS tape because I wanted to see how he was doing stuff. So he became a big influence on me then. Yeah. When I got to college, bass player named John Patitucci, who plays with Wayne Shorter now, has won Grammys with Wayne, has his own bands, played with Chick Corea. John Patitucci's awesome. But when I first started going to college, or even before then, like my senior year of high school, I was listening to Chick Corea, and I was like, who is this bass player? And how is he playing such high notes? I don't have those notes on my bass. Well, he was playing a 6-string bass, and I figured that out. I was like, oh, I need a 6-string bass. So I got a 6-string bass, and I started playing. It was my senior year. And I started playing 6-string bass and listening to John Patitucci. So he was another huge influence. And then I go to college and I find Jaco Pastorius and, all these other people. And the list just gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. It was the year 2000 that I discovered a bass player with a band called Tribal Tech. And his name is Gary Willis. And Gary Willis's playing was just something I'd never really felt before, if I can use that word. Because music, we feel music, Not only do we hear it, but we feel it, right? And Gary Willis is playing that feeling that I was like, what is he doing? I want to figure that out now.
Right. You feel and hear, right?
Yeah. So I figured out what kind of bass he played, and I bought one, and because it was just such a different sound than what I was used to listening to. So those 3 guys are huge influences on me. And there's another reason. I've actually met them. I've spent time with them. I've studied with them. I've become their friends. Like Victor Wooten's a great friend of mine. Patitucci, John is such a good friend at this point, And Gary Willis and I have been working together off and on since 2008. Wow. I reached out to these people. I wanted to learn from them for realsies, not just from the tapes and the videos and the books, but for reals, So they're not only huge influences to me, now they're my real teachers. Like I've learned so much from them. Yeah, it's awesome.
So did you do what are they, Skype lessons?
With Gary, I did Skype lessons. With John, I actually went out to his house in New York and spent 13 hours with him from morning till after night,
For how many days?
Just one. That's all I could do. But that one day was life-changing. And then, of course, we stay in contact. We've been talking to each other. We send each other Christmas cards. We're friends. Wow. It's neat. It's really neat. But yeah, that lesson. And then with Victor Wooten, I met him, got to play with him. And then he invited me to his bass camp. And I went there and I learned things. I didn't learn as much bass stuff from him as I did life stuff from him. Like being at his camp, I learned nature stuff. I discovered Wing Chun Kung Fu at that first camp that I went to.
Well, that's when you discovered it?
Yeah, it was
what?
Yes.
At a base camp?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? And as you know, I've been doing Wing Chun for 11 years and teaching here at the U. I teach the Wing Chun classes. So yeah, that was because of that experience, being a student of Victor's beyond just the bass stuff. Victor's bass nature camp was amazing. And I went as a student one year, as a volunteer another year.
Does he do Wing Chun?
Yeah, that's why let me tell you that story really quick. Just a little sidetrack. At that camp, Victor Wooten brought his teacher. In Kung Fu, we say Shifu or Sifu, or if you're a white dude from Utah, Sifu. Actually, I'm half Hispanic, but anyway, I digress. He brought his Sifu in to show us some stuff, and I'm a smaller guy. I'm not a big guy. I'm short and I don't weigh all that much. And that Sifu paired us off, and my opponent, as it were, was this big kid. Was probably 320 pounds, 6'5". I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Why am I fighting this giant guy? We weren't fighting, but he was just showing stuff and we were partnered off. And I could move this kid with very little knowledge, just that one evening, I could make this kid stumble back in his feet. And it was like, whoa, this is amazing. I want to explore this more. I want to learn more about this. Anyway, so that's where the Wing Chun came from. But back to what I was saying before, learning stuff from Victor in that way.
And this is during your college years, or
This was
after?
I was in my 30s when I finally met Victor. I studied with John after college also. Yeah, I was a professor at a different university and reached out to him as sort of like, I got to keep learning. Just because I have a tenure track job at a university doesn't mean I just need to chill. I want to keep learning. So yeah, I met John first, Victor next, and then shortly after that, started studying with Gary.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But the list is long as far as influences, like Ray Brown and, all the masters from the past and Paul Chambers. And, there's a whole list of acoustic players too. John Patitucci and Victor Wooten play acoustic bass. But Patitucci's acoustic bass playing is a huge influence on me too. So the list is long. Yeah.
So when you went to school, did you study like classical bass or?
So my bachelor's degree was in contemporary music and music technology. So studio recording, setting up live PAs, that kind of like what you do, you're in the studio, you're doing live stuff, so that was a part of it. And then I played bass and took bass lessons at that school, but that was that degree. It was a contemporary music. So I was playing jazz, funk, rock, blah, 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 and then doing all the tech behind it. So that was my bachelor's. My master's was sort of a strange situation. I was told that there would be a jazz studies program when I got there, and then that jazz studies program never happened for my master's. So I actually just did a performance degree for my master's. But my committee during that degree understood that I was what you call a crossover player or a hybrid player, where I play classical music, but I can also play funk and jazz and rock and all that kind of stuff too. So my recital, I played a concerto for jazz bass and orchestra, and John Patitucci recorded that. So I had the music, I got the music for it and stuff. But I also played some classical stuff on that master's degree. And then...
Wait, is that the one with Claude Bowling?
No, it's called Jazz Bass, or Concerto for Jazz Bass and Orchestra. It was written by Jeff Beal, and you can hear it on John Patitucci's Heart of the Bass album. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. You should check it out. Heart of the Bass, and Concerto for Jazz Bass and Orchestra. So I actually have, I have the music to it, and some of the edits to the music that I have are from the composer's handwriting. Yeah. So, and wow. I played that for that recital. So that degree was sort of hybridized, And then when I did my doctorate, I wanted to study classical double bass. So my doctoral degree is a performance degree in classical double bass, but my secondary area, which one has to choose, was jazz. So the master's degree students at the University of Utah have to take their classes in jazz studies. I basically took all of those classes too. Yeah. Okay. So my dissertation is more of a treatise on that very thing, the crossover playing. So I talk about how someone who plays jazz can get an acoustic bass and learn how to play in an orchestra, so they can maybe serve in a volunteer community orchestra or something. So that kind of training, or maybe the classical guy wants to start doing gigs in the jazz scene. What does that person need to know to start doing jazz? So how to read chord symbols, how to improvise, how to make walking bass lines. Yeah. So on and so forth. Yeah.
Is there like a moment in your life, this is what we call the call, when you got the call, when it brought you from an amateur to the professional?
Yes.
There's a moment?
There is a moment, and it's so funny because it's like the scenario is like every teenage angst movie where the rite of passage. So here's the story. I was a junior in high school, and I was in the pep band, and we were doing a basketball game. And, so we would play Mustang Sally or My Sharona or, during the timeouts and stuff, pep band. And the teacher looks at me and he says, hey, I want you to play a bass solo during halftime. And I'm like, okay, cool. But he's like, no, I want you to go out there, center court, and play it. And this was an afternoon game during school. So the entire school was supposed to go to this basketball game.
Wait, just solo whatever you want, or what
Yeah.
kind of...
He's like, go out there and play a bass solo. This was in front of the entire school. It's crazy because I can feel what it felt like to do this. So he's like, roll your amp, and we've got the extension cord. Roll your amp out to center court, and just slap a bass solo, man. You can do it. I was like, oh, I got super nervous. Like, oh crap, because I was not a socially, adept young man. I was the kid that wore black all the time and
Very introverted.
Oh yeah, totally. So I wheel it out, and it's so funny. It's like I said, it's like a bad movie or something, the high school angst. So the whole crowd is quiet. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna have Denson Angulo play us a bass solo. Give it up for him. 3 claps, some whoos and haws. So I'm wheeling that bass amp out to the center court, and it was squeaky and awkward. It's so funny. I wish that I could put a film crew together and recreate this moment. Maybe I'll write a grant to do that. Anyway, so I wheel it out there, and it's like awkward and quiet, and I start just slapping my bass. Or whatever it is, And the crowd is starting to dig it. And they're starting to dig it. And I get faster, and I do fancy stuff that I'm listening to Victor Wooten do. And, and I play this killing solo. I couldn't play it now. I mean, I just don't remember what it was. But something in E minor, because everybody slaps in E minor. I stop and tiny bit of silence. Yeah. The crowd is totally digging it. And it felt like, I don't know, it was amazing. And it changed my life. I
feel like this is supposed to happen.
Yeah. And it's funny because then, no one would ever talk to me. Like I said, I was the introvert. I was the weird kid that wore black all the time, except for my socks or whatever. Mm-hmm. And now I got people going, hey, you're that bass guy, huh? You were awesome. Wow, thanks. Hey, man, you're that bass dude, right? Wow, you're awesome. And these 2 kids approached me one time. They're like, you were the bass guy, right? Yeah. Well, we're starting a band. You want to be in my band? I was like, heck yeah, I want to be in your band. I've never been in a band before, So that experience exposed me to a different world of attention that I didn't have because I was the little nerdy, kid. And it unleashed the extrovert in me. I'm totally not an introvert at all. Not at all. Mm-hmm. Not at all. So yeah, but that was the moment. That was the call. I knew that it's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Yeah.
That's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, it's funny.
Okay, so how did you end up playing with all these artists that I mentioned?
My tenure with the Salt Lake City Jazz Orchestra was a big thing because we would do the jazz festival here in Salt Lake City, and guest artists would come and play with us.
Yeah.
And so that's how I would get to play with them. And then through that kind of experience, just having that exposure through the Salt Lake City Jazz Festival and Jerry Floor and those guys, I'm really grateful to those guys, because I was with that band. I don't play with them anymore, but I I just got too busy. But I owe a lot to them for the gigs and that kind of stuff. And that's how I would meet these people. So then, for example, with Randy Brecker, he came through to do some clinics, and he heard of me through a few different people, and I got the phone call. I was like, "Hey, I'm Randy Brecker. Want to come do gigs?" Yeah. Right. So it just kind of, people come to town or with a jazz festival or, doing clinics or something like that. And I get the phone calls. Yeah.
Cool. Out of all those people, who's your favorite person to play with?
Man, I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Because, yeah, they've all been super sweet people, and Bob Mincer is such a cool dude. I loved playing with him. Like Randy Brecker, like that was so cool. Nicholas Payton, that was an awesome experience. Like, yeah, I can't pin it down.
They're all great.
Yeah, they're all awesome.
I mean, they're all great.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Just fantastic.
So, how do you balance everything?
Oh man, you learn
teaching.
how to juggle.
Yeah.
Right?
How do you? Yeah.
Well, of course, time management is key. But every time someone asks me that question, I kind of feel like they want the answer that's not about that, but about like how you're doing mentally. Am I wrong? I don't know. Because how do you balance so many different kinds of things, so many different kind of stressors, And all I can say now is I want to do something for myself that brings me happiness every day. And then I can dig into those stressors with peace in my soul. If I'm taking care of myself, that's so important.
So what makes you happy? What?
Man, so just that mantra of doing something for myself daily that makes me happy, it can vary. Whether it's like, you know what, I feel like a yummy lunch today, and that's what I do. Or I'm going to nerd out and play video games this Saturday.
Just the simple things in life.
Just things that we, because of all those things, because of all those stressors, gigs, teaching, whatever, like you've got to find that one little simple, thing. Yeah. So I do that. I try to do that.
Mm.
Yeah.
And now, since you're playing just very, very, very good, at this moment, like what are you trying to achieve, like technically while on the bass right now?
Yeah. So I've been working with effects pedals and stuff a lot recently, like just trying to figure out what I can do creatively by myself, like solo, whether it's solo looping or doing rhythmic stuff or whatever. So I'm using the tech to try to
figure out the tech.
Yeah. What more can I learn about this stuff, like this? And one thing I profess to my students is, if you want to continue to learn, don't practice what you know, work on what you suck at.
So you've been experimenting.
I've been learning, and I still got stuff to learn with these pedals. And I've been using effects, since the mid 90s, but now I'm like building a pedal board, and tweaking it and figuring out.
Are you using it in your band?
I do. Yes. Chromium 3. Go to chromium3.com. Yeah. So and that's part of the band that I lead. That's my band. And it's all about using effects and getting kind of weird and experimental and, electroacoustic craziness. It's fun.
Nice. Yeah, and also in my research, I found your album, The Life Suite.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's out there.
Yeah, I listened it through.
That's my first and only solo record.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't find this anywhere else but your website.
Yeah, it's not really for sale.
And your MySpace.
Yes, I have a MySpace. That's old. Oh my gosh. Jeez. I don't even know the login for that. Come on. That's really funny. Yeah, I wrote that in 2005. So I've just been grinding. I'm getting ready to put out a record though with Chromium 3.
Oh.
So stay tuned for that.
Who you playing with in that band?
Parker Swenson is my drummer. And I think what I'm going to do for the record, so I've used several different players. So it's a trio with bass and effects, drums, and a wind instrument and effects. So I've used saxophone with effects like delay and, pedals, and trumpet. And so I've used Matt Lima. I've used Austin Vickery. Those are the sax players. And then I've played with Tom Young and Evan Taylor on trumpet. So when I put the record out, I think I'm going to try to get all four guys to do something, like a track with Matt and a track with Austin and a track with...
Just everyone together kind of deal.
Yeah, just the guys that I've worked with. But I've got some work to do still on that record. But yeah, the tech, figuring all that stuff out, it's fun.
I bet.
Yeah.
How long do you think it'll take?
I don't know. I'm getting better at it.
Yeah.
I did a gig where it was just me, trumpet, and a singer last night, and it was dope. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, and also for that solo album, what made you want to do that? What inspired you?
Gosh, that was a long time ago, man. 15 years.
Because it is like the tracks are very beautiful.
Thank you.
And like very like well orchestrated with
thanks.
just your bass. Yeah.
Yeah, that is my Conklin 7-string bass, tuned in a secret way. Yeah. Yep. It's a beautiful instrument. Yeah.
Did it just come out of you just one day?
I'm trying to think. That's tough. Way to fill the dead air, by the way. I had just had my son a little bit prior to that. And I was at the time a father of 3 beautiful little kids and my tiny little baby boy. And I don't know. I call it the life suite. And if you look at the tracks, it's kind of like the test and
right, just the aspects of life.
Yeah, the test. One of the tracks is called The Test. Yeah, so I mean, it's just about life, like going through life. I don't know. It just came one day. I remember tracking it. I just sat down and I was using effects and stuff, and I was messing around with alternate tunings of the instrument, and I just started playing that first motif. That thing. And it just kind of flowed out of me after that. Yeah, I guess you're right. It just kind of flowed out.
Yeah, because that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
It just came out so naturally.
And like the first one, that's one take. That's like me just sort of playing it and making it happen, and that's what came out. Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks.
Okay. Now we've reached the end.
Oh.
And yeah, do you have any advice to give young musicians?
Yeah, sure. That's what I do.
What would you like to say?
Well, take some of my classes because you'll hear all of it. But one of the biggest things that I tell my students that people seem to be on board with is music is a language. How did you learn your language? You were just around it. You speak whatever you speak. I speak English. I used to speak Spanish. I don't anymore. But how did I learn English? I heard my mom. I heard my dad. I heard the TV. I heard the radio. And I was just everything. It's the only thing I heard was English. You can teach music the same way. Listen, 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 imitate, copy, suck at it. Because you sucked at English, if that's your native tongue, right? And keep trying, keep going, keep doing it.
Yeah, no, I do really do like that extended metaphor of music and language.
Yeah,
I mean, it is a language, and
Yeah.
learning how to read music is just like learning how to read a book.
Yeah, and you couldn't read a book but you could speak fluently, right? Does that
Right,
make
right.
sense?
Yeah,
you didn't learn the
exactly.
rules until later. And, you know, that's part of my story that I really think is luck. Playing keyboard by ear for so long and just knowing how music goes. Then I get an instrument that I got to figure out, and then I get all this written stuff that I got to figure out. And I go, oh, I know what that is. That's what it looks like on paper. Okay, sweet. Yeah. So anyway, continue. Music is the language. I agree.
Yeah, I think that's what Victor talks about a lot too.
Yeah, he does. That's
So,
great.
so your advice: treat music
As a language,
as a language.
learn it like you learned your native tongue.
Mm.
Listen, listen, listen. Imitate. Suck at it. You know?
Copy.
Yeah. Imitate. Just like you imitated your parents. Just like we imitated you. We, as in me, I'm a dad.
Just how like we copy other people's essays.
No, that's
Right.
illegal.
Yeah. Right? but we try to emulate.
Yes. I like to think of my influences as parents. They're music parents.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes I'll say, what bass players do you like to a new student? Oh, I don't know. I don't really. I'm like, what? You're an orphan. You need musical parents. You need influences. That's where you learn. Yeah.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thank you for.
It has been my pleasure. Hopefully, this makes all of this makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Cool.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Oh, yeah. My pleasure.
Sweet.
I'll see you later.
All right.